All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
The Twiggs County Board of Education is now called to order. Today is March the 26th, 2019, and the time is 6:03 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. And for the record, we have 4 of our board members present. We have everyone here with the exception of Ms. Blackshear, and she is en route and should be here momentarily. And at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, March 26, 2019.
I make that motion.
Second.
The motion has been made by Mr. Rouse and seconded by Mr. Harris to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, March 26, 2019. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously. Do we have a copy of the minutes, Mr. Dixon, from the last time? Okay, so we don't have a copy of them, so we'll just bring those the next time through? All right, we don't have the copy of our minutes from our last meeting, so we'll just, if that's okay with everyone else, let's just push that to the next time and we'll approve both of those next time for March the 12th. And at this time, it's time for an ethics statement, and in Ms. Blackshear's absence, I'll try to push through that. Does anyone have any reason to have a conflict of interest on our proposed agenda this evening? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. And our next item is our superintendent's comments and announcements. Mr. Dixon.
Good afternoon, board chair and vice chair, board members. It's a wonderful day to be in Twiggs. It's a little windy on the outside, but it's sunny in Twiggs County Public Schools. We're enjoying spring break this week, most of our faculty and staff and students. However, we're here taking care of the business of Twiggs County Public Schools. I would like to make you aware that our legislative body is at the Capitol and they work on our behalf, and it seems to be that they're doing some things that will help public schools and public education, and we're very proud of them working on our behalf in Atlanta. And I do have a copy of the Legislative Day Capitol Report from John Zonner, and I will share that with you all for your reading that you can have at your leisure. Want to remind you that some of our board members will be sharing with the National School Board Association at the annual associational meeting later in this week, and I'm sure that they will bring back a good report for us. And we're hoping that all of our students and staff will be safe throughout this week as they are on break. And Madam Chair, that concludes my announcements.
Okay. Yes, and there's an email that I sign up for the legislative, and it is the lady from GSBA, and I'm trying, it's the wanted lady, and I'm trying to remember her name.
Valerie Wilson?
Not Valerie. She goes to the legislator, and she has spoken in front of the GSBA before. Sis, is it? No, Sis Henry is the former.
She retired.
No, there's another lady. Oh, and I'm trying to remember her name. I'll send you her name. I sign up for her emails and get her emails of, she goes every time and kind of gives us what is going on daily in the legislature too. I'll send that. Let me make myself that note. It's on the iPad, so I'll have to. Angela. That's her. Her name is Angela, but I'll send it to everybody, and you can just read and shoot. She goes every day and she takes notes on that.
Angela Palm.
Yep, that's her. But some kind of way you can sign up for her emails to get that every day. Does anybody else have any other announcements or comments going on? Okay, we'll move on to our business agenda, and the first item under our business agenda will be the February 2019 financial report. This is an action item, Mr. Austin.
Good evening, Board Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent Dixon, Board members,
Awesome.
pleasure again to stand before you. I would like to point your attention to the binder that I placed in front of you. I felt it would be more advantageous to have a collection of all the financial reports from July up to this current date, and also any budgetary items that we'll be discussing. So if every point in time you want to reference any older periods, you have that liberty. And I'll continue to update the folder so you can have a current copy. So if you're at the tab of February, I'm looking at the financial report for that month end. Overall, for the FY19 actual year to date, our total receipts are still outpacing our total expenditures to this particular point. However, I do want to point your attention to FY19 actual month end, the second column. If you notice, our change in fund balance is in the red, partly because in February, the taxes, they do slow down as far as that's, you know, the amount that's coming in, and we do see a small reduction in taxes around that time, so that's quite common. The big picture is we're still on pace to ensure that our fund balance is intact, and we will definitely continue to monitor our payment efforts, because we understand that in this particular quarter, our taxes are not as heavy as they were through November through January. So it is an expectation. So as we adjust to the new revenue, we will adjust our spending according to our best of our ability. Those are two key highlights I had. At this particular time, I do not have too many concerns. I'm always conscious of any unexpected expenses that may come during this time. So we are monitoring that very carefully as we prepare for budget season. We're ensuring that if it can wait to next year, then let's do that, so we can make sure that we're in the black to where we need to be. Any comments or concerns about the FY19 February 2018 report?
So as with our projection for our fund balance, even though it's looking like this now, you're still thinking that we're gonna end up somewhere where our projected fund balance, what we thought we might end up?
Yes, sir. This is just month by month. It's a cash basis, and normally at a cash basis, you're only looking at exactly what you take in, exactly what you're paying out. So that is quite, you know, a common thing to see some months in the red and some months in the black. But as long as our bottom line is on pace, that's the key thing.
Okay. Fellow board members, any questions there? Madam Chair.
Any recommendations, Mr. Dixon?
Madam Chair, if there are no further questions, we will seek approval for our February 2019 financial report.
You've heard the presentation from Mr. Austin and our superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the financial report for February 2019?
Madam Chair, I made a motion to approve the February 2019 financial report.
Motion has been made by Mr. Rouse. Is there a second? The second has been made by Ms. Blackshear. Is there any other discussion?
I'd just like to add, if we can get it back like we used to, at least a little early.
Yes.
Is there?
Can we get this report earlier than today, the day of the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Like on a Thursday before the meeting,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
Friday one?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be good.
That's
All right, you've heard, okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Rouse and seconded by Ms. Blackshear to approve the financial report for the month of February 2019. All in favor, please raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously. And the next item is an information item. Mr. Austin's going to go over our FY '20 general fund budget overview.
All right. So in the folder as well, under the budget plan, there is this prepared presentation and also I projected on the screen so you can follow along in what format works best for you. Exciting times, we're in budget season. I wanted to take the opportunity to present preliminary information so we can have an open discussion around this. And if any questions, concerns, or input that we need to consider in the budget season, we definitely take those into consideration so we ensure our students are at our best interest at all times. So the budget process, how do we come to our final numbers? The skeleton of what we do starts with the budget calendar, which we normally approve in January of that particular year. So we've already identified and set our budget calendar. So we hold a strategy meeting with any key stakeholders. So this is the time that we're getting all the information from those, the principals, any other faculty and staff that's important in that process, ensuring that we have the necessary documentation that we need. Contracts and recommendations. If we have any contracts, that's the basis of forming if the teachers or administrators that are recommended, we ensure that they're a budget in that particular season. And I think they give us a good foundation of taking care of our personnel first, because the personnel is majority of the budget. So that's a very important piece. So that gives us a good foundation about that. Budget formulation. This is actually where we put the numbers and the recommendations together. And we ensure that what the state is allowing us versus what we're saying that we should spend, that it's in line to our goal and that we're being fiscally responsible in that. And of course, the approval process. As we go through our budget calendar, we have a tentative and of course the final approval. So of course that's a significant part of that. And then the publication, ensuring that the state and all our stakeholders are ensuring where our numbers are ending up and how can they locate that information. Funding changes. So in FY19, our current year, our FTE was 769. In FY20, we're projecting to 746. Normally, FTE is an indicator whether the funding will increase or decrease. Well, the state is being kind, and we're anticipating that we'll receive some certification money for our teachers as a continual permanent increase in their salaries. So that's one possibility for the increase. Second possibility is having more students that are in our more heavily weighted areas, which are gifted and sped. However, they're just preliminary numbers, so they have not provided us with the details of how many students we have in those particular buckets. But as of right now, from Ted Beck, the CFO, he's projecting that we'll receive $49,070 for this particular FY20 budget season. In local funds, we do not anticipate any change because we do not anticipate increasing administration. So again, going back to the estimated FY20 revenues, just talk about the state revenues for local funding. There's always the opportunity to use historical data and use that to our advantage. So over a 5-year period, we're averaging about $4,070,000 for taxes. Well, we have to consider that the tax office has their fees and that if the citizen will pay on time. So we cannot assume that it'll be 100% on that tax levy. So I deducted that 5% out and give us a conservative amount of 3.9 that we can possibly expect. But of course, as more conversation happens with our tax, local tax assessors and commissioners, we'll adjust that number according to as more data become available. And then for our total budget, we're looking at $7.9 million as of right now for our FY20 budget.
And it's the same as, and that's the exact same amount as your budgeted amount for 18 as well?
No, ma'am, that's probably a typo.
Oh.
So it's really FY20. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is that
So
right?
that's just say FY20.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so benefits is, after salaries, then you have your benefits. So the TRS is doing an interesting thing right now. I called last week, because I did not see any information on the website saying what FY20 numbers will be. And they're stating as well, they have not released those numbers. So the word from a lot of conferences that we've been to, that it will be an increase, but we have not received that number as of yet. So we're anticipating an increase in TRS, so that could be forthcoming. I hope not, but again, we're still waiting for that answer to come from the higher officials in that regard. As far as state health benefits, right now everyone is at $945 for the certified and non-certified. We do not anticipate an increase, but again, we're still waiting to ensure that that will be the final number. And if there is an increase, we will budget accordingly, and I'll update you guys on that number.
That's one of the highest paying is the benefits.
Yes, ma'am. Mhm. So that's a very important piece that we're waiting to get back from.
On our non-certified, we pay how much for help?
$945, $11,340 a year per employee.
Non-certified.
Non-certified. The non-certified and certified are now on the same pay level.
And sometimes our benefits is more than what we pay in salary for some of our non-certified.
Indeed. Indeed.
Wow.
Mhm. All right, so comparison, I figured this would be kind of small on the screen, so if you have a hard time there, please turn your attention to the folder. So this is a historical comparison of where we've been and where we're going. Just a few things, of course, the FTE count according to how many students that we have or that we're anticipating to have in every particular fiscal year. Our QBE earnings, this is the gross amount that we're anticipating. The 5 meals, the local fair share, well, the government has calculated that if they're going to give us some money, we need to have skin in the game. So this is our contribution to our funding source. And then the net amount of what that would be less the 5 meals. So austerity reduction, I have not seen or heard anything about austerity as of yet. So we're hoping that from last year we didn't have any, that continues, because you know that money does hurt if it is implemented in the budget. Sparsity, so we are getting some more sparsity this year, so that's a plus. Equalization, we're not eligible for equalization, we never have received it, so that's a continued trend. Nursing is $45,000, that hasn't been a continued trend since FY15. Transportation, we've seen a little increase from transportation from last year. And then our total goes back to the FY20 revenue projection. So this gives you an idea of how we came to the $4,049,007. And that is the financial overview for the budget of FY20. I know it's an information item, so again, I'm open to any questions, concerns, and I hope I can answer to the best of my ability.
So, the raise that our certified or the employee should get, how did that go through and how is that going to affect our budget? Through this, at the state level? I know it was supposed to be around $3,000 for each teacher, or I'm not sure.
Yes, ma'am. $2,775 is the amount that we're anticipating that we should receive. They're going to give us that money in our QBE dollars.
Okay.
So, of course, the QBE formula does not fund everything, but it will give us some dollars to go toward that.
And we're building in for that amount for the certified. And one of the things that this board has been forward thinking in, if you recall, over the past 2 years, most of you have been here with the exception of Mr. Harris, we have built salary scales. And with our salary scales, not knowing that this was coming, I tried to build in a 2% raise for our non-certified. So I built in a 2% step raise for them on our salary scales. So we have been forward thinking in that respect, because for years our non-certified people did not have salary scales that would have had, increases for them. So we are a little bit ahead of the game on the non-certified, so we've gone back and we tried to look, and make sure that we were equitable across the board, and as we go deeper into this process, we will lay all of that out to see where we have found where there were some inequities, in some of the ways of where, for instance, in our school nutrition, where we were offering them the option of they could be on the salary scale, or they could take $1,000 one-time bonus during the month of December. Well, if I'm on the lower end, the $1,000 bonus at Christmas, it looks real good. But if I'm on the upper end of 20+ years, I'm missing $2,000, maybe $2,200. You know, and I don't know that if that was because when I got here that was something that was already in place. I don't know if that was ever explained to them. So we're pulling them in to say, hey, this is your salary scale, and this is where, and we're gonna remove that option and put everybody on the salary scale, because if you remember from our audit, that there was some inequities between the salary scale and what people are being paid, and it's hard to justify when the auditors get us back in that room because of some of those options that we've given in the past. And we just feel like if we put people on the salary scale, you know where you're supposed to be paid, regardless of who's sitting in my seat, who's sitting in Mr. Austin's seat. There's no question about how or or where they should be paid. Where we can make sure that people are paid correctly and with equity. And with equity, because at a certain point in time, it could be to your benefit to take that 1,000, but at a certain point in time, and if you're not, if you're not watching that carefully, it is not to that. So we just feel like if everybody get on the salary scales and move forward on the salary scales, that's the best thing for our employees, and that's what we have to look out. And Mr. Austin has done a magnificent job of really watching that, and we spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks shut up and going through each staff member and trying to really see how each person was affected, negatively or positively.
So that the 2775 will be added to the salary scale.
Scale.
Okay.
Yes.
The beginning teacher would just make that much more, yeah, so then we'll go.
And that there was discussion about the 2775. There's also in there talks about a 2% for non-certified.
Certified as well.
So, and there were specifics with the certified, but of course it would be with this board. It's kind of hard if I'm a certified person and you list me out and you're certified, but you leave me out. It doesn't build for a good culture. So as we're talking about, but we're building in for all certified staff, so we don't have creative culture. That's not good. But we'll bring that back in our next preliminary of that. But for this one, because we have to have some going forward, we've added some programs. We know we're adding barbering, because that's something that we've talked about already. We understand now, as we built our budgets at the school level in the past, we have not really given them a professional learning budget from our general fund. All of their professional learning budget has been from either grants or federal funds. So as we're building it from QBE, or what we call our general fund, we're looking at giving them a budget of $3,000 or so, and then you allocate at that school, how that goes. So, because when we go back and we look over that, we had not been doing that. So we looked at, building that into the budget. So as we hear things that the board would like for us to do, so this is the time when we talk about those kinds of things. So we can build the budget in and yet stay in where we need to stay. And stay in the black
Right. Stay
with
on
no
the
millage
agenda.
increase.
And stay up there with no millage increase.
Okay, one of the things that, we have done and, I've been very, looking at is that, you know, there are some positions that we won't replace with some of the people that we have leaving, that we're gonna use some of the staff that we've got. So we're gonna have some savings on some personnel, to the tune, right now, right about $250,000. So, and that's gonna help us to be able to do a few things that we need to do to address some other things. There are some things that we have to replace, but also when we add those raises, we got to think about how those raises affect TRS and the benefits. So, you know, it's not 250 that we got to gamble, but what are those things, you know, is there anything that's on your mind that's a priority that you know, that we need to?
How is our art is it going to be able to, we're going to be able to sustain the art instruction in our school in what grade levels?
That's something that we need to talk about. What do we want to do? Is art something that we want to invest in? This is the time when we talk about that. You know, that's when a couple years ago, we made that we wanted to do that with music.
And now we have chorus. We have
We have
chorus in the
chorus.
elementary and the middle and the high.
Yes.
And band in the middle
Yes.
and the high, in the middle and the high.
Elementary, middle, and high.
And high. We have band in the elementary as
Fifth
well.
grade.
Okay,
Fifth
okay. And, I mean, in my opinion, art is a wonderful experience for our students, and it's a good thing.
I think art is,
Something we need to look at it, in light of our budget.
I
If we
do
can
wanna
afford it.
see our welding, pick back up.
And welding, should be coming back, Central Georgia Tech, we should have our instructor back. We won't give up welding.
Yes.
We will not give up welding. Thank you, for that, but we will not give up welding. And art, let's keep it,
Let's keep the art.
okay.
If we can afford it.
Because ain't no use in giving them a taste of it this year, not letting them have another spoonful next year, next school term.
And, as a matter of fact, we're talking, the, group that we got the grant through this year, they're coming to observe us, and there's a possibility that it may be partially funded again, so it may not be totally on us. So that'll be a good thing that I can express that we are interested in continuing, so, okay. So, and I will make sure that we are on top of our welding, because we've invested a lot, within our welding program. And Ms. Blackshear, thank you for bringing that up, because, we did, our person who is helping us out with, in ag, has agreed to do that for us, 49%. Again, so that's a good thing, to help us out through for next year. So because there were some monies that we needed to expend to get the greenhouse up, and I did not want to expend that money if we didn't have, you know, a person, so he committed that he would help us out through next year, so that helps us too.
That's good.
How is our ag places going?
Picking up.
Because I know we swapped over again.
Yes, sir, picking up.
And I know you mentioned the contracts and recommendations. When will our teachers' contracts go out?
They are ready, and as soon as they walk back in,
Okay.
actually, Some of our people who were in in another district, we got theirs to them because they were signing theirs before we left on Friday, but they will have them in their hands on Monday when they walk back in.
Okay. And that was just information, Mr. Austin, so thank you. Does anybody have any other questions or comments regarding our budget? And what do you think is a good goal to shoot for our fund balance? Are we thinking 10-15% of the fund to reserve for the fund balance? How is that looking?
Well, we definitely want to continue to increase our fund balance, and I think we've been good stewards in working towards keeping a good fund balance. And I think we've been doing that and not negating the needs of our students. And I think that that's a real good thing. I think we want to definitely continue the needs with our CNA program, when the needs, if we can just continue to focus on the needs of our students, and while we are focusing on, making sure that we're recruiting and maintaining highly qualified teachers.
That's our goal.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right.
Has our cosmetology class increased any? Last time I checked, it wasn't but 4 students.
The cosmetology, and what it is, because we have so, we have such, our population of students, when you spread them out over so many things, and they get to choose which programs that they, cosmetology. And I think cosmetology was better for us when we had our instructor and she was here at the times when we needed her. When the college sends someone, they only send them when they are available. But we maybe in the near future, our cosmetology person will be someone who can be here for a half a day when we need them. But when we have to fit them into the college's schedule, it doesn't always fit into the school schedule, because if the college can only send them at 6 period, that may not be a time when the students who want cosmetology can get in there. Does that make sense? And that will hurt the number of students who can get in there. We had a larger number of students when we had cosmetology offered all morning, because they had more opportunity.
So what hurts us in having our own in-house person for such a program?
We had our own person at one time. It's just having that person who is qualified to teach it, and you have to be qualified master cosmetologist and certified by the college. And we had that person at one time.
And that person is still paid by Central Georgia Tech, or that still
Collaboratively.
Collaboratively. So that's a possibility if we just had a master cosmetologist that was willing to do the times that
Absolutely.
we needed them.
Oh, yes.
Okay. What other programs have that hindrance other than cosmetology? I mean, because traditionally, all we originally had when we started talking about other programs that were adopted into the school system, originally Twiggs was just CNA. We had our own in-house person, and that worked very well because that person was able to do a full half day. And then when they got to clinical, my classmates experienced this, Mr. Mike's daughter, Courtney, they got on the bus, went to clinicals at the nursing home, and would come back. And Miss Vivian Lewis, and Miss Patty Wynn were in-house. And Bill would take half the day and work with our students, I think 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but her job allowed that. So that's, I mean, for every program, we probably won't be able to do that, but that's definitely, because we have such a small population and those schedules get tricky, that schedule is having 6, we have 7 blocks now? Having our own in-house person would definitely be, and then there are our students, so that's something that we really need to strive for. Going into the 2019-2020 year for cosmetology, possibly for CNA. I don't know, but that's a big deal. It's a big deal because They knew our students, they worked well with them, and you had larger graduating classes. CNA pinning ceremony was nothing shy of 22, 32 students at a pinning ceremony. So, and at the time we had more students also, but just having a down-home, in-house person matters for our students in our school. Second question, in reference to the $250,000 that we speak in reference to, y'all brought up art. What other programs do we have that we could possibly allocate funds for that we currently have as a working program, but we might want to send some funds over to it if necessary? You said welding, art. What else do we have in-house that possibly needs a facelift or could utilize some of these funds? How much money would we allocate from the $250,000 to go towards art? How much will go towards welding? Does welding needs any funding as far as equipment? Those are questions that I have in reference to how we're gonna delegate what department gets what funds. Certainly, we wouldn't give art $50,000 unless we needed to give art $50,000. But we just need to see where these funds are allocated, and all the money shouldn't go to one program or two programs. Art, $250,000 is not a lot of money, but it is some money to give another program that could just be hindered $10,000. So if we started off our art program, which I think was what, 10,000? So we started our art program with 10. Is that sufficient enough to run our art program? Or if we need to give it another 10 for next year, and then we can allocate the other $240,000 to another program.
Don't get too happy with that 250,000.
Don't start spending that money, that hen hadn't laid that egg yet.
Well, good question of what you asked. When we're thinking in terms of that, it's for these types discussions that we need to have, because one of the things that, as we were sitting here, I was thinking in terms of security.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do right now? We have chief.
Mm-hmm.
So if chief is often in training, what do we do when chief is? You know, we have some subs that we pull in, but for ball games we have to hire extra. It may be that we start to look for our second person, that we can house someone down at the elementary school who was post-certified that could do some other role, so we could have a person here who can also be that second person there. We spent about I think maybe $8,000 in contract services with extra people, but I know like at some basketball games we have maybe 3 people contracted, and sometimes it's not a high profile game where we could, if we had 2 of our people, 2 of our people could carry it. So we always want to be thinking in terms of security as well, because we think in terms of Twiggs. We're small, but we can't think like that, because security is going to have to be something that's always on our radar. And of course, we did get the $30,000 for security too, that we will have to think about how we're going to utilize the $30,000 for security. When we think in terms of that, we still have some needs that are not, of course, my first thought is we've got to think about what are we going to do to increase student achievement. That's what we've got to do, because my goal, and I'm probably telling y'all more than y'all want to hear tonight, but my first goal is I want to add parapros into kindergarten. I think we're getting the right foundation in pre-K, and I think when we have 21, 22 little ones in kindergarten, I think that would just help us to strengthen that foundation there. And if we can get it right, the foundation, I think that would help us. Now, I'm always thinking too, strategically, how can I do that without going on our general fund side, but I can't supplant when I do that. So even though I can use some federal funds sometimes to help us with that, we've also got to shoulder up from our side to do some of those things. So, and that's been, some of our stakeholders have come to me about, with that. So we've already, Mr. Austin and I have already, played with that on how we're going to, sustain that or look at that.
Possibly out of this small amount.
We have not looked into that particular amount.
Gotcha.
We've already looked at how we're gonna
Other way.
assign some staff
Right.
through, some Title I funds,
Right.
because some of our people who are leaving, they were on Title I, so they're coming off of Title I,
You
so
might
we're gonna
transition them into that.
transition them to.
How many kindergarten classes do we have?
2.
Okay.
Next year we will have
We
2.
definitely need that.
We definitely need that. So these are the kinds of conversations that we've got to have. Because like I said, my first priority has got to be increasing student achievement. Then we have some fiscal needs that we've got to address.
So we have 2 pre-K, 2 kindergarten classes. Traditionally, we always had a parapro in kindergarten.
Yeah.
We didn't have pre-K back then, Head Start and then straight to kindergarten. So we had parapros along the way. Was that a trend throughout the education system at large? Did they remove parapros from kindergarten class?
That was when tough times came, that was one of the cuts that happened.
Okay.
Time came, that was one of the first cuts that began to happen.
I could see the need for parapros in kindergarten classes just because oftentimes teachers, just one teacher per class has to deal with behavior plus academics, and it normally is a short attention span at that age. So having one to deal with behavior and other mom issues in the classroom, I could definitely see that as being necessary. We talked about other things that we could possibly do. I didn't have to throw my 2 cents in reference to some programming. Of course, I love art. I love the arts at large, so chorus and all things that we already do have. I commend us for having great programs that we're working towards. I would like to see them be a little bit more active in elementary chorus, middle school chorus, and possibly even high school chorus, being prepared for a literary competition. And I understand now that we do have a literary, and she's working with that department. So I got to know that the retired teachers lunch, which was great. So seeing that they're getting more active, I mean as in being on programs outside of the county, that allows that cultural piece and that dynamic of being exposed outside of the 4 walls of Twiggs and the 4 walls of Twiggs County Middle, Elementary, and High. I would also love to see our horticulture department, I guess it's all under CTAE. Well, it is under CTAE, but we have a strong agriculture department, sounds like, and we're building on shop. But of course, I've mentioned before horticulture, which was our floor design and so on and so forth. I know that may be a while because we have some equipment to purchase for that department. But I could see our horticulture department doing very well for our students. A good hands-on activity, floor design, so on and so forth. Competitions with FFA. Also, our home economics class needs a facelift. There is some equipment that has been down since I was in school. And that's been 15 years ago next year. But there are some food mixers, some food processors, some things in that classroom that I think will be helpful for our students. Not just family consumer science, but family consumer science, food science, home economics. I think there were about 4 classes that was listed under that FCCLA area in CTAE. But I could definitely see that being helpful for our students as well. So cosmetology is great, welding is great. I did all of it in shop. Shop was one of my favorite classes. I think I took it every year. Yeah, I think I did. But just if we could allocate some funds in those small areas for classes like that, small equipment. I don't know how much we can allocate for just equipment once again. And what comes along with that? Do we have necessary things? I do understand that that class is actually doing well from what I see. I see some things that she posts on social media. Her name slips me. Miss Thomas. So Miss Thomas' class, I do know that there are some things that could be used. And if we could get a write-up sometimes of those, some things like those classes need, some of those things might be just sitting around in somebody's, this in the third around Twiggs, somebody's house. Might be some stuff in the nutrition department in the schools that they can no longer use, cookie sheets, whatever it is. But there are some basic skills that our students need to be introduced to when it comes to food science and home economics, whether it's just learning how to sew a button back on a shirt, in addition to, I baked my first real cake in Miss Cheney's home economic class back in 2004. So just some opportunities. I think we did, her class was responsible for a breakfast one morning, that one of the big things that the superintendent was having. So things like that our children need to be able to take pride in. So it was some good opportunities. So I know there are some things that just need some. So when you throw a dollar at them, I mean, I couldn't resist just saying, but horticulture would be my number one.
Does that go in with the greenhouse? The horticulture, was what you mentioned?
We have even plant sales and stuff, Mr. Love always did, but that floor design piece, we had more boys active in floor design than we had girls back then. It was just a good opportunity to non-traditional things for some people, but it was a great class.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, well, I know that we'll be having other talks about this later on, and so we're gonna move on from that, and I entertain a motion to move into executive session for personnel reasons.
I'll make that motion.
The motion has been made by Ms. Stokes and seconded by Ms. Blackshear to move into executive session for personnel reasons. All in favor, please raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to return to regular session from executive session?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
The motion's been made by Ms. Stokes and seconded by Mr. Rouse to return to regular session from executive session. All in favor, please raise your hand. That motion carries unanimously. There were no recommendations from our superintendent, so we will forego that part. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second
The
motion.
motion has been made by Ms. Stokes and seconded by Mr. Rouse to adjourn. All in favor, please raise your hand.